documentation is the third step. Now this step is where the principal or the assistant principal or the designee who has been trained and credentialed, they become the evaluator, and they go into the classrooms and they do 4 10-minute walkthroughs. And basically what a walkthrough is exactly what it says. You're walking into the classroom, you're getting a feel for the classroom, you're acknowledging what's occurring in the classroom. You may have an opportunity to sit down, you may not, but for about 10 minutes you are doing what's called a walkthrough. Now, the walkthrough 4 times throughout the whole year. Then you've got 2 30-minute observations. And those observations is where you come in, you look at all 10 of those standards, and then you evaluate the teacher on those 10 standards within that 30-minute observation. And that's a minimum of 30-minute observation. Now, there is a possibility that all 10 standards may not be observed in that observation. So the evaluator has that opportunity to go back to their office, or as they are sitting there, to send a message to the teacher and say, I didn't observe this standard. Would you provide some information to me so that I will know exactly what has been occurring in your classroom, or what I could have to support my evaluation? That's called documentation. And basically that is something that could be a hard copy or it could be electronic that the teacher would provide to the evaluator that would help the evaluator get a full, complete picture of that teacher. Now, the teacher can upload documentation at any time. Now, let's just give a for instance. What if I were a teacher and you all had invited me to come and present to your conference this summer, and at the end of the conference I were to have a copy of a document that showed that I successfully presented to your organization? Well, that might be something that I would want to send to my principal, and that's a documentation. That's a piece of documentation. It's something as very straightforward as that. It could be a lesson plan, something very simple, straightforward like that. And again, it is a piece of the conversation that is occurring between the evaluator and the teacher. Now, that's the third step. At the middle of that year, at the middle of the school year, and at the beginning of the school year, there is a required conference as well. The pre-conference occurs at the very beginning of the year, and then at the middle of the year, there is also a mid-year conference that occurs. Y'all, that's another wonderful opportunity for teachers and for evaluators to communicate together, to talk together. The last step in this this effectiveness system, the TAPS process of the effectiveness system, is the summative evaluation. And that occurs at the end of the year. And the summative assessment is completed, and we are looking at the totality of the entire year and what was the consistent practice of that teacher. And then at the end of the year, consideration is given for those walkthroughs, for the 2 observations, for the surveys of instructional practice. Now, I'm going to be talking about that next, the surveys of instructional practice. Surveys of instructional practice occur in the intermediate grades, which is 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the middle school, middle grades, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then high school, which is 9th through 12th. Now, surveys of instructional practice are online, and they are without the teacher being present. They are anonymous. There are 3 different surveys given, 3rd through 5th, 6th through 8th, and 9 through 12. The 3rd through 5th is read aloud to students, but again, it is an online survey. The student responses, as I said, are anonymous, and the survey window is open from October until April. Now, do you remember, if you look at your framework, do you see the big arrow? The big arrow. That's a visual reminder that the surveys provide student perception of these 4 standards: of instructional strategies, of differentiated instruction, of positive learning environment, and academically challenging environment. Those 4 standards, the surveys inform them. Now, let's look at a sample of a survey. Now, this is just a sample, and we use this, something similar to this, in our training. If you look at the first example, it gives it in a very straightforward statement. It says, my teacher uses different ways to teach and help me learn. Think about that, different ways. That is differentiated instruction. But it is said in the language of the student. My teacher sets high learning standards for my class, or for the class. High learning standards. Again, that is academically challenging environment. And it's in the language of the student. Now, that is surveys of instructional practice. Now, the last component of Teacher Key's effectiveness system is student growth and academic achievement. Yes, announced, or they may be unannounced. It is basically a district's decision. Yes, and it could be a combination, and I have seen it many configurations. Yes, sir.
How much weight do the surveys carry?
They do not, because they are informing the TAPS, or the Teacher Assessment on Performance Standards. It is no longer a separate component.
And how do we weed out the case of 4 and 10 where someone has a growth action or an
Okay.
teacher? How do we take that into account?
Okay. Let me paraphrase your question. The question was, how do you take into account somebody that maybe is showing out during the survey or such? What we look at is the average or the mean, and when you do that, you know, statistically, it is my understanding that those outliers, that's factored out. Great questions.
So
Absolutely.
there is no weight. What do you mean by that?
Well, the question was, is there any percentage? If you will look down here in the executive summary, it talks about that for the teacher effectiveness measure score, is it given like a certain percentage of weight? It is a part of the documentation, or it informs the TAPS. It is a very important component, but it is no longer a standalone component. Yes, ma'am. Your colleague made was about the concern of the evaluator coming into the classroom. The thing that I want to assure you of, one of the things that we are doing statewide is that we are providing consistent training. The training that is occurring in our state in July is going to be provided by designated trainers, okay, from the state. At the end of the 3-day with the Teacher Keys effectiveness system, the person who is attending, the participant, will go through a credentialing process.